Hi students, I'm Sonia from Vidya Guru, starting a new session on Union Budget. The budget was announced by the government, we all know that. So this session is going to be Union Budget. Believe me, what happens is like a student, if you are going through some channel and you search for the budget, what happens is in general terms the budget is taught. But as you are going to watch this session on our portal, you will have only one agenda watching the session. That is, the questions are going to be the same in your exam. That means the budget I am going to teach you, that is going to be significant from the perspective of every competitive exams. I am not going to teach you budget generally, like every citizen of India needs to know what happened, what was actually released by the government of India. Believe me, what I am going to teach you is going to be super significant from the perspective of every competitive exam. So watch the entire session, but the numbers are many, the percentages are many, and that means you cannot learn them just like that. You have to prepare notes. If you are not preparing notes, if you are just watching the lecture, it is not going to be beneficial. Let me tell you that. Watch the session till the end, because even the last question of this session can be there in your exam. So before starting, I want to tell you something, that if I start the session, I want to tell you that I put in a lot of efforts to get these many points for you. Please press the like button for sure. Don't forget to do that, because I have put in a lot. Share the video with those friends who are preparing for any competitive exam, and subscribe to Vidya Guru's YouTube channel if you have not till now. Please press the bell icon. That's how you will receive notifications of all our videos and you will be able to watch them. That's how you'll be able to watch them easily. You need not search them. Okay, when I start the session, as you guys can make out, I'm speaking in English, not using a word in Hindi. That means if you're not comfortable with the language, you can switch to the Hindi session. We record a separate session in Hindi medium also. That is also there in the playlist. This session is recorded in English medium primarily for our students from South India, primarily for our students from Northeast India, like students from Kerala, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Those students who are unable to understand Hindi well, we record a separate session for them in English medium. From here on, I'll be starting. Be focused, prepare notes. If you are not writing everything, you will forget everything till the exam date. Okay, the session is going to be a little longer, and I'll start from here on. You can see the heading states Union Budget. Nirmala Sitharaman is our, finance minister. We know that. When we talk about budget, what exactly a budget is? You as a, person in your family, or maybe any family member of yours, prepare a budget, and keeping in mind that, some income sources are there and we need to spend money at, certain places. That means for a particular time, for set period of time, income and expenditure, such sort of, preparations are made. That is called budget of a household. Now, think from that angle, think from that perspective, that union government, that means government is there. When government is preparing a budget, that is going to be for the entire country, they need to know what are the sources of income and where they'll be spending that money. So when we start, we'll start with first thing, and that is economic growth, which they are stating. They are showing that gross domestic product, GDP, for the next fiscal means fiscal year, for the next year, it is going to be 8 to 8.5%. Kindly read this particular thing, that a range is mentioned. That means it is a kind of projection for the next year. They are predicting what is going to be the GDP for the next year. GDP for the next fiscal 2022-23, it's going to be 8 to 8.5%. If you don't show any interest in budget, believe me, the questions are going to be there in your exam. I am not asking you to understand what does this term mean, what does that term mean. You need not. Just learn the pointers which I have actually shown you here. Try to learn them, because that's how you'll be able to answer the question straight away in your exam. Gross domestic product for the current fiscal, that is 9.2%. The fiscal year which is going on right now, it is 21-22. It has not ended yet. The next one, projection for the next one, it is 8 to 8.5%. But I'm saying for the current fiscal, it is 9.2%. That's what they are stating, the fiscal which is going on. Now they are talking about the sectors. That means agriculture I'm referring to. It is growing at the economic growth for agri sector is 3.9% in the current fiscal. Now you need to read, I just talked about this particular point separately, projecting something for the next year. But all these things which are written here, they are for the current fiscal. They are for the current fiscal which is going on. That means look at the sector. Agri as per them is growing at the rate of 3.9%. That's the economic growth for it. Industry 11.88% for the current fiscal. Services, economic growth for services 8.2%. When I move ahead, exports 16.5%. And when you talk about imports, that's pretty high. That is 29.4%. This is basically the sector-wise sort of economic growth that I'm showing you here. When I move ahead, I'll talk about all those terms which appear super difficult. I'll try my level best to make them easier for you. But again, I'm stating the same fact. If you don't understand anything in budget, please learn these points if you are not able to understand. Although I'll try my level best to make you understand. When I say FD means fiscal deficit. Deficit deficiency. Try to associate these words. That's how you'll come to know that there's something less, some sort of deficiency is there. Try to associate these words. FD means fiscal deficit. When I say fiscal deficit for the next year, that is 22-23, it is going to be 6.4%. When they say fiscal deficit for the current financial year, that is going to be 6.9%. That fiscal deficit for the current year is 6.9%. For the next, see, deficit has to be reduced. We all know that. If government is actually going through something, if they have some sort of deficit, if they have some sort of deficiency, trying to tell you, if somebody is familiar with the word deficiency, that person will be able to relate that word with deficit. That means I'm saying if government has some sort of deficit, that deficit has to be reduced. So they are targeting the next year, they'll make it 6.4%. What is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit reflects total borrowing requirements of the government. I'll explain that in easier terms. First, look at this particular thing where the definition of fiscal deficit is there. Try to read that. What is fiscal deficit? Revenue receipts plus non-debt capital receipts and minus total expenditure. What the government earns, that is receipt. What they spend, that is expenditure. That means when we add receipts and when we exclude expenditure, that will make fiscal deficit. If receipts are less, if expenditure is high, that means deficit is there. You need to understand that if I earn 100, if I spend 50, that means receipt is higher and expenditure is less. But if I earn 100 and if I spend 200, that means receipt is low and expenditure is higher. Similar case is happening here. That is why fiscal deficit is there, because receipts are on a lower terms and expenditures are high. So what I'm saying is, if you wish to learn, if I've written, some sort of definition here, you need to relate it, you need to understand that even such kind of questions were asked in your exams previously. That is why you have to learn them. Revenue receipts should be added with non-debt capital receipts. You need to exclude total expenditure. What it comes out to be, that is fiscal deficit. Now you need to understand if deficit is there, what is written here. I'm going to explain that again because I did not explain this particular sentence. I was saying that if you are reading this, if deficit is there, government needs to borrow to actually cover up that deficit. What I'm trying to say here is that if your fiscal deficit is high, that means the amount of borrowing of the government is going to be higher too. It is going to be equally high. So if fiscal deficit is high, that means government borrowings are going to be high. FD, fiscal deficit, reflects total borrowing requirements of the government. They are related. That is what I was trying to explain. So fiscal deficit for the current year is 6.9%, which they are planning to reduce further for the next year. That is going to be 6.4% as per the government. Now, we'll discuss RD and PD. RD is revenue deficit. PD is primary deficit. When I talk about a revenue deficit or primary deficit, prior to that, I want to tell you that revenue deficit in terms of percentage. For the next fiscal, they have stated, see, every deficit has to be covered up. Every deficit target should be set, that has to be on a lower terms. Whatever deficit the government is facing right now, if they make a target, obviously they want that the next fiscal they are going to see that deficit should be on the lower terms. So next year it is going to be 3.8%. That's their projection. Revenue deficit for the current fiscal is 4.7%. Read that carefully. See, these percentages have to be written first. Then I'll try to explain them again. Primary deficit is there. Primary deficit for the next year, for the next fiscal, it is going to be 2.8%. What I am saying is that primary deficit in the current fiscal is 3.3%. I hope you have actually understood the percentages at least. Now, I'll come to their definitions if you wish to know what RD is and what PD is. PD, primary deficit. Primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest payments. Fiscal deficit, when you actually exclude interest payments from fiscal deficit, when you exclude interest payments from fiscal deficit, it becomes primary deficit. When I actually talk about revenue deficit means receipts minus expenditure, revenue receipts minus revenue expenditure. Now again, I'm going to emphasize on the same thing that if receipts are on a lower terms, if receipts are low, what the government is receiving, that is less, but expenditure is high, then it comes out to be a deficit. That is why the definition of revenue deficit is revenue receipts minus revenue expenditure. So if expenditure is higher than receipts, then it becomes revenue deficit. Please understand these terms carefully, and I was saying learn these percentages also. Let's move ahead. You can see what is there on the board. Now, when you look at this picture, please understand that there are sources from where the government earns. This is basically the place where government spends. If 100 rupee is spent, what on percentage terms, like how much they are spending in percentage terms, it is there on your screen. I'll explain that one by one. When I'm saying central sector schemes are there, the government spends around 15% on those schemes, spends on them. Now finance commission and other transfers. Are there. Government spends 10% on them. State share of taxes and duties. You need to learn that when you pay tax, any kind of tax, if it is collected by central government after keeping its share, they release the percentage share of the states also from where they received the payments. It is pretty obvious. If the central government is receiving some kind of payment, if they have to settle the taxes of state governments also, they are saying that 17% is that out of that 100 where government spends money. Centrally sponsored schemes are there where the government spends 9%. Pensions, on pensions government spends 4%. Other expenditure, general, they say we spend 9% on them. Major are actually the area which you need to know, that is defense. Defense, 8% expenditure on defense. Subsidies which are provided by the government, they are also 8%. You also receive some kind of subsidy provided by the government. So it happens with all. So for that also government has to spend something. So subsidies provided by the government, that is 8%. Interest payments paid by the government, they are 20%. They are 20%. So this is basically the places, the areas where government spends, government expenditure in percentage terms. Now, when you look at the other picture, you can see that this picture is going to, tell you from all sources, from those sources where government earns. One by one, again, that same 100 appears in the picture. Let's talk about them in percentage terms. When you say that is actually one of the sources for the government to earn. That means when I say income tax is there through which government earns, how much percentage does it make? So through IT, government earns 15% of its income. Union excise duties, they are there too, we know that. So government earns 7% out of it. Corporation tax, corporates are there, companies are there. So corporation tax is there, 15% is that. It is 15%. It is 15% what I am writing here. And when I move forward, GST is also there. Goods and services tax, we have heard about it. We know that. So 16% government earns to GST. 15% from IT, 16% from GST. Corporation tax 15%. From excise duty 7%. From customs also government earns 5%. Non-tax revenue is also there, that is also 5%. That actually comes out to be the government's income sources. When I talk about borrowings and other liabilities, government earns 35% of its income from here. So these are the major sources through which government earns. And when you actually talk about this particular area from where not very significant sort of, government earns from this area, that is non-debt capital receipt, government earns barely 2% from this area. Now we'll proceed further. As you guys have understood what they earn, what they spend, that is actually going to be their budget. If the government receives something, they have to spend. So they need to present the idea in front of the entire country that this is going to be the amount which they'll be spending on this particular sector or on this particular scheme. Now, after percentages, I'm going to explain that particular thing in terms of numbers. You can see them here. As the numbers are there, sector-wise allocation, we can call it, in easier terms. Now, railways. How much money, how much they'll be spending on particular sector, that is what, I'm going to explain here. Railways will be getting 1,40,000 crores. Okay, what was allocated to health? That is 86,606 crores and 86,200 crores. I'm not going to add these two figures. These two figures were actually given on multiple websites. More believable, more reliable is 86,606 crores. I have written two of them because many of you will otherwise start pointing out that this is not the figure. So I've written two of them. Whichever is going to be there in your exam, you can mark that. But I told you again, telling you the same thing, that this is more reliable as it was there on the government website. But you need not learn it like that. You can generally say that 86,000 crores was allocated to health. This is, in general terms we speak. Education area of education, the sector got the allocation of 1 lakh crore. See, I've written it like that. Absolute, terms, 1 lakh crore is they have actually allocated to education sector. But if you wish to know it precisely, if you feel that I can learn it that way, that 1,04,278 crores were allocated to education sector. When I move further, can you recall that I've actually stressed, I've actually told you something, that 8% in percentage terms, I was telling you that government is actually, giving this percent to this particular sector, this percent to this particular sector. Now relate that. The percentage was 8%. Now you can see in numbers, they are saying to defense around 5.25 lakh crores they are allocating. So 166 crores got allocated to the defense sector. Union budget is going on. Please be careful when I actually talk about the numbers. Okay, when you actually look at this picture, I can, stand here. It is going to be difficult for you to understand what is written here. This is the picture which is available on government's website. As it was there on government's website, I considered it a little important. That is why I'm going to explain that. See, as this chart is there, if you are not able to see what is there on the screen, then it is for 22-23. See what they speak in budget. It is generally the estimate number which they are projecting. So I'm saying for 22-23, they have said for agri, say this is the violet color which is there in the box, that violet color I'm going to highlight here because it is the particular area, as in it is the particular number we need to stress upon. The reason is as it is going to be for the next fiscal. That means for 2022 or 23. Now the sectors are there. Agriculture and allied activities, allocation 1,50,000 around. Education around 1 lakh. That means we are saying this is particularly this is the amount 1,50,000 crores, 1 lakh crore that they are actually talking about, this sort of allocation. To health sector they have allocated 86,000. I have actually taught you all that. But as per this graph, how it looks like, that is what I'm showing here. Rural development, they'll be spending around 2 lakh crores. When you talk about social welfare, 51,000 crore. On transport, they'll be spending around 3,50,000 crores. It is written 351851. So please read that carefully. On urban development, this is going to be the number, that is around 76,000 on urban development. These are the areas which they are covering, which they are showing. So look at them carefully. Try to read the numbers if you wish to, or otherwise what I've taught you, that is pretty much sufficient. I'll talk about it again. Now, as the government is saying that they are spending money on particular areas, I have actually taught you them. But please understand that if government has sectors, government have schemes where they need to spend money. That means if schemes are there like Atmanirbhar Bharat, you may have heard about a lot, many. So one by one, I'll be discussing about them. Now we'll see that total receipts of the government and total budget. What you need to see here is when I'm saying that government has to allocate money. If the government has allocated money on sectors, the government has schemes also where they need to allocate money. So as they are allocating, See, even you can read the subheading. It is scheme wise allocation for 22-23. Now, before allocating money, you need to understand what they are earning and where they are spending. Now look at it. Receipts, that means the earnings of the government. It is 22.84 lakh crores. This is basically the money which the government is receiving. That means the income of the government. When you talk about total budget, it is written like that only. Total budget means total expense of the government, and the total expense where they have to spend money, that is 39.45 lakh crores. Now look at the difference. That means the incoming is less. That means income is less and the expenditure is more. Income, the sources from which government is earning money, that is less. Where they are spending money, that is more. So now look at these areas where they are planning to spend money. Talk about Manrega. It is actually called Manrega. If you wish to call it Narega, do that. Mahatma Gandhi, that is actually associated with this scheme. That is why it is called Manrega. So Narega allocation is 73,000 crores. When you proceed further, you can see that Jal Jeevan Mission is there. So as per that Jal Jeevan Mission, the allocation for that is 60,000 crores. When you proceed further, you can see that National Education Mission is there and 39,553 crore is the allocation for the same. Now, after all this, you can see that there is one PM Gram Sadak Yojana. When you read such words, if you are unable to understand even this much Hindi, I'll try to translate it for you. I am saying that PM, they mean to, say PM, that means Prime Minister, we all know that. Gram Sadak Yojana, there's a scheme which will actually benefit rural areas, village areas, where roads will be constructed. Sadak, road, and Gram means rural. So what I'm trying to say here is that if such a scheme is there, this scheme has the allocation of 19,000 crores. So this allocation for the rural areas, that is also needed to be learned. When I proceed further, you can see that PM Kisan. Now PM Kisan scheme has the allocation of 68,000 crores. When you proceed further, I actually gave you the reference of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So even that Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar Yojana is there. The allocation for that Rozgar Yojana is 6,400 crores. When you proceed, you can see that 10,000 crore is the allocation for Swasthya Suraksha Yojana. It is also a scheme. If you are not able to read it in Hindi, then I'm saying it is also a scheme. What kind of scheme is it? Then they're referring to health. Swasthya means health. And when they talk about Suraksha, they're talking about security. Now, PM Swasthya Suraksha Yojana, the allocation for that scheme is 10,000 crores. When I move further, PM Awas Yojana is there. So, for that PM Awas Yojana, if you are not even aware of Awas, they are talking about the houses which are needed to be built. PM Awas Yojana, under this scheme, the houses will be built and 48,000 crore is the allocation for the same. But you need to understand, they have promised something more than that in this particular area. They have actually mentioned it that 80 lakh houses to be built in 2022-23. For this, they are making the allocation. They are saying the next year will be making 80 lakh houses also under this PM Awas Yojana. So, people will get houses. That's what they are mentioning. Now, when I proceed, just look at this. We all have heard a lot about MSP. MSP. Now, if a farmer is there, they require their produce to be sold on some minimum price set by the government. That is MSP. We know that a bit about it. When we say that wheat and paddy means rice, wheat and paddy, MSP procurement. Government will be buying from the farmers on MSP. Government will be buying on MSP from the farmers. What government will be buying? Wheat and paddy from the wheat and paddy farmers only. They are saying for that they'll be spending 2.37 lakh crores. But if such a thing is happening, they need to quote that how many people will get benefited. That's actually their motive, that everybody should know if they are doing something of this sort. 163 lakh farmers, as per them, will get the benefit of such a thing. Because if their produce is procured by the government, if government purchases it directly on MSP, that means farmers will get some benefit. When I proceed further, now you can see that RAMP is there. No, I am not saying any other RAMP. I am saying RAMP is a program. As RAMP is a program, please look at it that they are allocating something, around 6,000 crore for it. What is RAMP? If RAMP is going to be asked in your exam, please, you need to know the full form of it. That's how you learn what RAMP is. I'll explain that. Raising and accelerating. RAMP, R stands for raising, A stands for accelerating. What are they raising? What are they accelerating? MSME. RAMP, M stands for MSME. Micro, small, medium enterprises. Raising and accelerating MSMEs. What is P stands for? Performance. So raising and accelerating MSME performance, that is RAM, they are allocating 6,000 crores for this particular program of MSME. When you proceed further, you can see that PM Divine is there. This question is surely way more important than others. Every teacher has a habit of speaking like that, you know that. Even I have a habit of, that kind. If something is important and something is even more important, I have to tell you that I am saying that this question will be asked in some exam surely. Please mark it very, very important. Now, if they ask you what is PM Divine, what will you say? What is the allocation? You have to tell them 1500 crore is the allocation for PM Divine, 6,000 crore is the allocation for RAMP. So you have to learn it like that. Try to write them. Try to write all the full forms. Please do that, because if you write with your own hands, you are able to learn them. You are able to retain them well. I am saying the full form of Divine is PM is PM. That is there. We know that. DEV, that is development. I is initiative. There is a development initiative for what? For whom? For what sectors? Northeast. Northeast. I am saying development initiative for Northeast region. Development initiative for Northeast region. That is the full form of PM Divine. And this PM Divine got the allocation of 1500 crores. From here on, I'll actually move to another important question, and that is production linked incentives. Even by reading PLI, you'll be able to relate it that this question is surely going to be there in your exam. Anything related with that. So PLI is production linked incentive. Some sort of incentive is actually being given. What is it associated with? I'll actually talk about that. So from here on, production linked incentive, I'm saying, that is PLI. Scheme is there for manufacture of high efficiency solar modules. The allocation for this is 19,500 crores. I'm going to repeat that. Production linked incentive scheme for manufacture of high efficiency solar modules. It is 19,500 crores. When I actually look at the next point, allocation to states for catalyzing investment, 1 lakh crore as in interest-free loans. See, all the points are there on your screen. You can read them yourself as well. But I really feel that you require some sort of help. Although I've collected these points, but my job is to make these things easier for you. If you are not able to understand what I'm speaking once, you can re-watch the video. I understand that when you rewatch the video, it appears to be boring, but that's how you are able to understand something more, something better. I am going to, try making you understand this point. Please understand that when I say government is allocating money to states in the form of loans, there's a purpose for it. Why government is distributing loans to the states? What are they actually expecting from the states? So they expect that states should bring in, states should actually get investment. States, if the states have to bring investment for them. If, central government wants that states themselves should work to get investments for them, they require money for that. If I am sitting in my state, I expect that every organization, every individual should come to my state and invest in me. How will they do that if I am not, doing anything? I need to tell them that how my state is going to be a beneficial place for them. Then I have to spend money for the same. I am saying that money will be provided by the government, central government to the state government so that state governments can attract investors. That money is 1 lakh crore. But they are not giving them for free. They are saying we'll give you loans. That means you have to repay us. And they are interest-free loans though, but still they are actually providing them loans only. When I proceed, you can see that 120 crore production linked incentive scheme is there for drones and drone components. This is basically the 14th sector. Now, first understand something. 14 sector. See, production linked incentive scheme is there. I indirectly told you that it has 14 sectors and 14th sector is related with this drones and drone components. 14 sectors are there. 14th sector is drones and drone components. For this PLI scheme, they are allocating 120 crores. I want to actually wrap up the part 1 here. Initially, I did not tell you, but this video is going to be a little longer. I have actually shot this video in 2 parts. I really wish that you should watch the second part also because it is going to be equally beneficial for you. Thanks for watching till now. Thank you so much.